Hi guys, nice to see you on this beautiful Monday morning. Welcome to Distant Learning 2.0. We are in science on May 11th. So let's get down to it. This video is only for the students who are working on their packets from home. They are not in Google Classroom. This is only for you if you are doing your packet and not doing Google Classroom. If you're doing Google Classroom, I have another video for you. Check your Google Classroom account for that. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started. What is going on right now? Okay, I made it full screen and that was crazy. All right, so let's go ahead and get to it. We are in the packet, Moral Focus Science and Social Studies, Volume 2, and we are starting on page 74. You should be in Activity 4, Salty Soil. The directions say, use the information below to complete the activity. Our I can statement for this week is, I can identify the human impact on the environment. I can identify the human impact on the environment. So we're going to be doing that by reading this article. So before I start to read the article, I like to preview the article and I like to check up on the questions. So let's go ahead and take a look at our questions. Our question is, what is the central idea of this article? Use at least 2 details from the article to support your response. What is the central idea of the article? Use at least 2 details from the article to support your response. Well, let's get to it. If you already feel 100% good about knowing what the central idea or the main idea of the article is, you can go ahead and skip forward through this part of the video. For those of you who would like a little bit of a refresher, stay tuned. We are going to go over it. We've done main idea and details a lot when we were in person in the classroom, and I believe Ms. Herr might have taught you some main idea and supporting details during this Distant Learning 2.0. So let's go through it. What is the central idea or the main idea of a text? The main idea of a text is what the text is about. The main idea or the central idea of a text is what the text is about. What's it about? That's it. That's what we're trying to figure out. So how do we figure out the main idea? Authors also support their main idea using details. So let's take a look. How do we find it? The first thing we do is we look for what the text is mainly about. We're going to look for what the text is mainly about. The second thing we're going to do is we are going to identify details the author uses to support the main idea. We're going to be looking for those details that the author uses to support the main idea, to prove that this is what the text is all about. Why on earth do we do this? Good readers identify the main idea and details in an informational text to understand what the author is trying to explain to the readers. Good readers identify the main idea and details in an informational text to understand what the author is trying to explain to the readers. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be checking for what is this about and what details do we have to support those, to support that main idea. You can use a pencil to underline with us. You can use a highlighter to underline with us. I'm going to be highlighting with my computer mouse. We're going to be highlighting as we go along. So we're going to try and figure out what is the main idea of this text. So let's go back to sharing. We know our I can statement is all about human impact on the environment. So we're probably going to get some idea about what that is in this article. So the first thing I like to do when I'm previewing a text before I read it is to check out the title, the headings, any pictures or captions, and any bulleted lists to see if I can get an idea about what I'm going to be reading. So it says salty soil. I'm probably going to be reading something to deal with salty soil. It says alternative gardening where the soil is too salty. So this article is probably going to be about gardening when the soil is too salty. Why would they have to have different places to garden if the soil is salty? Does the saltiness of the soil affect if a plant will grow or not? Maybe I'll find out. Let's read. Kaluna, Bangladesh. Okay, so it's probably going to take place in Bangladesh. Cool. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to look for some headings to try and help me out. Tough to grow. This section is probably going to be talking about why it's tough for plants to grow in that specific area. Okay. Climate change spawns alternative gardening. So maybe the saltiness of the soil has something to do with climate change? And climate change is something that humans have an impact on. So is that how humans are impacting the environment? Maybe. Let's keep going. Harvest, soil, fertilize, and grow. I wonder what that section is going to be about. Harvest, soil, fertilize, and grow. I know harvest means that we collect stuff. So are we collecting soil? Fertilize usually is like putting good stuff into the soil. A lot of times they use like cow manure for fertilizer. And grow, probably about how they make the plants grow. So this section is probably going to be about how they make the plants grow. Fresh garden variety. It's probably going to talk about how they've gotten a bunch of different varieties of plants in Bangladesh thanks to this alternative method because the soil's a little too salty. Could be. And that's it. And then we get to our question. So let's go back. We didn't have any bulleted lists or any numbers, but I do see a picture of a lady, a bunch of ladies actually, looking in the soil, and it looks like they're doing some gardening, maybe. It looks like they might be picking some stuff. Their hands are dirty. They're all in dresses, and their heads are covered. So looking at the way they're dressed, it's probably not going to be around near us. So let's keep reading. We're looking for those main ideas. We're looking for what is this about and what details tell us what this is about. Let's go back. Kaluna, Bangladesh. As storms have flooded the village of Chandipur with seawater, the soil there has become increasingly salty. Oh, hey, that tells me why the soil's salty. They've had a lot of floods and the seawater has flown onto the soil, evaporated or soaked into the soil, but left the salt there. As a result, farmland throughout the village has been ruined and growing crops has become harder. Chandipur is a village in southwestern Bangladesh and is regularly hit with extreme weather and flooding. The situation became particularly bad after Cyclone Alea in 2009, which brought storm surges that broke embankments and flooded farmland. So cyclone is basically a hurricane just in the other hemisphere. After 2009, vegetable crops planted in the ground in Chandipur yielded only meager or small returns. Some failed completely. So after this big cyclone, a whole lot of seawater fell and landed on the soil, and it either made all the crops that they planted, very, very small amount of them produced any fruit, vegetables or fruit, or some just never actually grew. Okay. For the past 3 years, however, hundreds of villagers have managed to grow crops in vertical gardens. Vertical gardens consist of a variety of containers in backyards and on rooftops packed with soil and crops. Vertical gardens can produce a lot of vegetables while taking up very little space. As a result, they are protected from the harmful effects of flooding. They let farmers continue to cultivate vegetables despite the damage to farmlands. So they figured out a solution to this called vertical gardening. That's kind of cool. Shakuri Rani Debnath, a resident of Shandapur, says her vertical garden generates nearly 440 pounds of fruits and vegetables in the summer. These include pumpkins, squash, cauliflower, tomatoes, spinach, and chili peppers. All right, so it looks like in this first section, it's talking about why it's really difficult for them to farm, and because of the salt that got in the soil, and that they've had to come up with unique ways um, to to farm and get vegetables. That's what I'm thinking the main idea is. Let's keep reading to see if we can find any details to support that. Tough to grow. Bangladesh is located in the delta. Ooh, you guys know what a delta is. Of three of Asia's largest rivers, and most of the country is at or below sea level. Consequently, Bangladesh is prone to flooding and waterlogging. That means water stays above the surface. The country experiences extreme weather only made worse by climate change. Rising sea levels and violent storms cause frequent flooding, and flooding brings salty water onto dry land. The salt then soaks into the soil, making it difficult to grow crops. The problem has been particularly severe in coastal areas along the surrounding rivers. The loss of usable land is a pressing concern in Bangladesh, one of the world's most densely populated countries. There are about 156 million people in Bangladesh, almost half of the population of the United States. Yet the people in Bangladesh live in an area about the size of Iowa. Growing enough food for all of those people is already a challenge in such a small country. It is made harder by the loss of land due to flooding. Moreover, Bangladesh's population will likely increase from some 156 million today to around 250 million by 2050. This was obviously written before the coronavirus, making the situation even more dire. Vertical gardens are a simple way that the poor can increase their food supply. Okay, so in this section, I'm getting information about why vertical gardening is important. We find out where Bangladesh is located. We find out why it's frequently flooded and salt has gotten into the soil, and why it's important that they grow crops and that the salt in the ground prevents them from growing crops. Okay, let's keep going. Climate change spawns alternative gardening. There is no country with such population density where natural resources are stretched to their very limits, says Craig Meisner, the country director for Bangladesh at World Fish, an international nonprofit organization headquartered in Malaysia. World Fish has been building vertical gardens in southern Bangladesh, along with other means of coping with climate change. So it seems like they're saying the soil is super salty because of climate change. Climate change is causing them to have more violent weather, which is making the soil salty, which is making them have to figure out different ways to garden. That's what I'm thinking. Vertical gardens protect soil from being soaked with floodwater and becoming too salty as a result. So far, World Fish is implementing vertical gardens only in Bangladesh, although examples of similar local designs exist in other parts of the world. In theory, vertical gardens can work in salty soil in any area that gets heavy rainfall. So vertical gardens only work if the area gets a lot of rainfall. If they're having extreme weather because of climate change, it makes sense that Bangladesh uses them. Okay, cool. And World Fish is helping them establish these things. Okay. Working with local nonprofits, World Fish trained about 200 villagers in 4 districts in southwestern Bangladesh to make vertical gardens. Others have copied their neighbors' designs after seeing how well they worked. World Fish plans to expand the program to include 5,000 people over the next 2 years. Harvest, soil, fertilize, and grow. Growing the vertical gardens is relatively straightforward. Villagers harvest soil around November and use it later during planting season. At this time of the year, soil tends to be less salty because of heavy rains from July to October wash the salt away. Villagers then put the soil into containers and mix it with fertilizer. To prevent waterlogging, the containers are raised off the ground on bricks. They are also filled with brick chips that improve water circulation and drainage. Small holes are cut into the sides where short-rooted vegetables such as Indian spinach and tomatoes can grow. Long-rooted vegetables such as gourds grow on top. Small containers, which cost about $1.30 to $2 to build, can produce up to 17.5 pounds of vegetables in one season. Larger containers can produce more than 220 pounds of vegetables at a cost of around $11.50 to $13 for materials and seeds. World Fish provides seeds and some materials to villagers in the first year. Okay, I'm going to pause a second. So this first section told us why we needed vertical gardens and what the problem was, that the soil was too salty. This section explains why it's incredibly important that they need vertical gardens. This section explains that World Fish is helping to give vertical gardens to people because climate change has made it incredibly important for them to need vertical gardens. And this section explains how to build the vertical gardens and how much it costs for the vertical gardens. We're saying a lot of vertical gardens a lot, and we're explaining why we need those vertical gardens a lot. Maybe that has something to do with the main idea. Could be. Fresh garden variety. Sahobatha Debna, a 35-year-old mother in Chandipur, has a vertical garden that occupies just a corner of her dirt yard. Nevertheless, each season it produces hundreds of pounds of pumpkins, gourds, green beans, eggplants, beets, carrots, cauliflower, coriander, cabbage, green chili peppers, and spinach. Another garden on her roof grows fat bottle gourds. The gourds grow from a few large plastic containers that once held animal feed. Vertical gardens, like Deborah's, produce a lot of extra food, which goes a long way for the rural poor in Bangladesh, who seek out a living on a few dollars a day. Debna says she used to grow just one or two kinds of vegetables, but now her vertical gardens grow a very large variety. Finding enough fresh water for her new garden is a challenge, she admits. Still, she is able to grow crops with soil that, not long ago, was too salty to be used by anyone. So these vertical gardens have allowed people to grow the food that they need. And not only that, to grow extra, because there's a lot of people who don't have a lot of money there. Okay, cool. So now you need to come up with what is the central idea of the article, and use at least 2 details from the article to support your response. As always, if you have any questions about this, email me, give me a call, Class Dojo me. I will be more than happy to help you out. Thank you so much for listening. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help you out. Stay safe, wash your hands. I love you, and I will see you later. Bye-bye, you guys.